It's amazing how sometimes the biggest, most profound ideas are packed into just a single line of text. In this explainer, we're going to put one incredibly powerful verse from the book of Revelation right under the microscope. We're going to look at it through two very different lenses to really unlock its full meaning.
So here it is, Revelation 16, verse 5. Right away, you can just feel the weight of this language. It's a declaration, right? A powerful statement being made in the middle of what sounds like a huge world-altering event. But what is actually being said here? And maybe more importantly, who is the one saying it?
And those are the two big questions that are going to guide us. First, who is this angel of the waters? And second, what exactly does it mean for God to have judged thus? As we're about to see, the answers can be understood on a couple of really distinct levels.
All right, so let's jump right in with that first question and focus on the messenger. Who exactly is this voice that seems to be speaking from the waters?
Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to look at this verse through two different lenses. First, a literal, linguistic lens, like what do the original Greek words actually mean? And then we'll switch to a more symbolic, theological lens. And what's so fascinating is seeing how these two views don't clash, but they actually build on each other.
So kicking things off with the linguistic side, the Greek word used here is angelos. Now its most basic meaning is simply messenger. You see it all over the New Testament, and it's usually talking about an angel, a celestial being sent with a specific message or a task to do.
And what's this messenger's turf, so to speak? The hudor, which just means waters. So if you piece this together, the most direct, literal reading is pretty clear. A specific angel, one who has authority over the waters, is the one speaking. It's a straightforward interpretation. But if we shift our perspective just a little, a whole other layer of meaning starts to appear. Okay, but now, let's shift gears and put on our theological lens. Elsewhere in the scriptures, who is identified as the ultimate source of water? Jesus, right? He's called the fountain of living waters. In the Gospel of John, he literally says, "If you're thirsty, come to me and drink." So, from this point of view, the angel or the messenger from the waters, well, maybe it isn't just a created being. It could be interpreted as Jesus himself.
So we've got two really compelling possibilities for who's speaking, a literal angel or a symbolic Christ. Now, let's pivot to the second part of our question and dig into the message itself, this powerful declaration of a righteous judgment.
The real heart of this declaration is the word dikaios, which means righteous or just. And this isn't about power, it's about being morally right. The messenger is basically saying, hey, what God is doing here is perfectly in line with his character. These aren't just random acts of power, they are fundamentally, deeply just. And then there's the action word, ikrinas, you judged. This is where one theological interpretation makes this incredibly profound connection, linking this very judgment all the way back to the central event of the Christian faith, the cross. In this view, the ultimate righteous judgment was God placing all the sin of the world onto Jesus. So this verse isn't just about some plague in Revelation, it's pointing to the very heart of salvation. And hey, this idea isn't just some random one-off thing. This whole concept of God's perfect righteous judgment is a huge theme that's woven through the entire Bible from start to finish. I mean, you just have to flip a few pages forward in Revelation itself to chapter 19, and you hear it again, almost word for word. True and righteous are his judgments. When something gets repeated like that, you know it's a core concept the author really wants you to get.
And this is where it gets really cool, because this connects all the way back to the Old Testament. Hundreds of years before Revelation was written, the psalmist made the exact same declaration, "Righteous art thou, O Lord." So what we're seeing in Revelation isn't something new, it's a continuation, a culmination of this ancient understanding of God's character.
All right, so now it's time for the really fun part. Let's start weaving these two threads, the linguistic and the theological, together and see what kind of bigger picture starts to emerge. So, remember the event that kicks this whole thing off? The waters turning to blood? Well, from that theological perspective, this isn't just some literal plague. It's seen as this powerful symbol that points directly to the cross, what the source material calls a type of Calvary. And you can see this beautiful, symbolic logic play out. Step 1, Jesus is the living water, the source of life. Step 2, that water becomes blood, which symbolizes Jesus, who was life itself, taking on sin and death for us. And the result? His blood, when it comes into contact with our sin, destroys its power.
And if you're looking for the verse that really nails this interpretation down, look no further than 2 Corinthians. It explicitly lays out this incredible exchange. The one who was sinless became sin for us. So the judgment that's proclaimed as righteous, back in our verse, Revelation 16:5, well, it's this very act. It's the just, perfect plan of God to deal with sin through the sacrifice of his Son.
Okay, so let's take a step back and look at the whole shebang, the complete picture that we get when we put these 2 lenses together.
And this is the really cool takeaway, right? You don't have to pick a side here. On one level, you have a literal messenger, an angel, affirming that God's actions are just. But on a deeper, symbolic level, you could see it as Christ himself affirming the righteousness of the Father's whole plan at the cross. Instead of contradicting each other, the 2 views create this much richer, deeper, more complete understanding. Which brings us full circle, right back to the text itself. This verse isn't just a commentary on a single event in the end times. By describing God as the one who is, and who was, and who is to come, the verse is framing this righteous judgment as an eternal, unchanging part of God's character, something that's consistent across all of time.
So, what does this all mean for us? It kind of leaves us with this big, fascinating question about how we find meaning in the first place. It suggests that sometimes the deepest truths aren't found by just choosing one interpretation over another, but in seeing how multiple layers can exist at the same time. It's a challenge, really, to see texts not just as flat statements, but as these rich, multi-dimensional tapestries where a single thread can tell more than one incredible story.